Scott?
Yes.
It's 2023.
It is. It's a new year.
Brand new. Spanking new year.
Shiny. Fresh.
And New Year's are usually about resolutions, planning for the future, thinking about what's next, goal setting.
Yeah.
And what the Zoomers are into these days.
Oh, what are they up to?
It's called manifesting.
Oh, yes. I know this. Okay. What are we manifesting? We're manifesting some like good stuff for us, some health and some love for ourselves and our family and our loved ones.
Close. We're going to manifest guests on this podcast.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, no, this is much better.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't need love. I like this better.
Mm-hmm. So I want you to, sky's the limit, manifest the perfect, it's probably not aliens guest.
Okay. Just right now, just out of thin air, I'm just going to feel it in my heart. I mean, we all know, here's the thing. Everyone's going to say, get Eric Von Daniken on. I would love to. He's alive, right?
Yeah, he's old, but he's alive, yeah.
He's alive. That would be fun for me. But typically the guests we have are people who are like intelligent and like and like know actual things about the stuff that they say. So, or they're just fun to be around. Sometimes both. So I guess if I had to pick one, I would say my brain immediately went to Hugh Jackman. And I know why it went to Hugh Jackman, but I don't.
Dale will be mad because I feel like she still has the Australian monopoly here.
And I don't know if Hugh Jackman knows much else other than acting and singing and dancing, which is a lot, which is great. But I don't know how much that would help us.
You could though probably get a lot of content out of your knee wallow story about your Wolverine costume.
Well, that's how they do it in Australia. It's all backwards down there too.
Yeah, knee wallow is just what they call it.
It's just what they call it. All right, who are you thinking? Who's your ideal guest for this show?
All right, hear me out on this one. Chuck Tingle.
Chuck Tingle is a person I definitely know of as I...
Pounded in the butt by an ancient alien.
What?
Chuck Tingle. He is known for making comedic and ridiculous erotic novels.
Oh.
Like Pounded in the Butt by a Tide Pod.
Oh. I see what you're saying here. I did look up this name, and there's such a thing as the Tingleverse, which is that's a great thing. My brain spit out anything that was useful and is now filling it with any information I can absorb about the Tingleverse.
It's a lot of pounding in the butt titled.
It's a lot of pounding in the butt. Aliens do love doing that.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a few weeks.
Is this a real person, or is this like a collective of people who like make the same sort of jokes?
I think it's one guy.
One, okay.
Apparently he's pretty rad.
Well, Hugh Jackman's also pretty rad.
All right, what if we did an episode where we got Hugh Jackman and Chuck Tingle and they had to interview each other?
What if we were replaced as hosts of this podcast with Chuck Tingle and Hugh Jackman?
Hello there, I'm Hugh. I know nothing about what's going on today,
but I can carry a great tune.
I don't know what Chuck Tingle sounds like.
And I have no idea what Chuck Tingle sounds like, but in my head, he sounds like this. It would go a little something like this. Hello, it's me, Chuck Tingle. I write books, and I write books where a dinosaur did pound me in the butt. Am I the main character in my books? I don't know. Am I writing about all the things that I want in my butt?
Oh, man.
Couldn't tell you. I'm still on the first page of Google, and I have yet to gather the courage to click any of these links.
This bit was a mistake. Speaking of mistakes, this is a podcast called It's Probably Not Aliens.
And hey folks, we fucked up.
We fucked up a lot.
We fucked up a lot on this show, on the year plus doing this show. So this is going to be a fun corrections episode, but my name is Scott. I'm one of the hosts, and I know nothing, including I don't even know what we got wrong.
Oh, my name.
There's no list in front of me.
Yeah, my name's Tristan, and as you will learn in the next few minutes, I also know nothing, apparently. This is, so we've decided that, because I was like, all right, let's do a corrections episode. It'll be really fun, be really content. And then
sure would.
Then I actually looked at all the corrections we received, and I was like, this is gonna have to be a segment because we're gonna have to do a bunch. I don't know what that says about me and like my capabilities as a creator, but there's a lot.
Here's the thing: we have never claimed that this show is an academic resource for people. This is purely entertainment, and there is good history and fun stuff. But like, you know, we put a new episode together. Well, I say we. Tristan puts together a new episode week to week while doing other stuff. We're just here for fun and laughs and goofs.
Yeah, I still do my best to try and make every episode accurate, but you guys are great. And when I say something that is inaccurate, because I often have to make myself an expert on a subject with a lot of depth and nuance in like a day or two, then you guys come in. And also, sometimes there's some really cool things that I miss, and you guys pipe in to fill in some key gaps. So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Is we're going to
That's exciting.
Yeah, we're going to talk about some stuff.
This is all stuff that you got wrong, right? Like I didn't get anything wrong.
I will tell you one thing. I compiled most of this back in December, so it'll be a bit of a surprise.
Okay, to both of us.
Yeah, and I'm
Happy
roughly
New Year.
Yeah, I'm roughly starting at the beginning of the show and moving forward. And we'll break when we run out of time, basically, and we'll pick up afterwards, and I'll collect more. So
let's do it. Let's run through some stuff. What do we get? What do we get wrong?
Well, the first one we're going to talk about is the Easter Island episode we did way back in the day.
Way back.
And this was not so much a correction as it was another thing to be sad about, because we mentioned that there was the tourist damage that was done at Rapa Nui to the heads. But since the episode aired, there's actually been something way worse, which was there was a fire on Easter Island.
No.
And a bunch of Moai statues got caught in the fire and caused several of the stones to crack.
No.
Yeah, it's bad news.
What? How did the fire start?
That I don't know. I could find out. Oh, here we go. The Minister of Agriculture announced on Friday that the cause of the fire will be investigated. Well, thank you.
I'm seeing that, and I don't want to throw anything out there and make a correction and have to do a correction in our correction episode, but I'm seeing it was a volcano.
That could happen.
And that sounds cool.
A lot of what's it called? It is in the Ring of Fire. So
mystery solved. So a volcano.
Yeah, and this happened in October. So it was after the episode aired, but important to know.
As we've discussed on a previous episode of this podcast, volcanoes are places that aliens live. So they were trying to cover their tracks. They were like, we're going to use our volcano layer.
All the frozen ones that didn't pay their taxes, according to L. Ron Hubbard.
That's right.
So next one we go to TFB, or That Fucking Bird.
That fucking bird. There it is.
Yeah.
It took me a second.
And during that episode, I mentioned that one of the things that Ancient Aliens did to show that that fucking bird was able to fly is that they made a motorized version of it. And somebody rightfully pointed out that the motorized airplane was not done on that fucking bird. They did that on the Kimbaya artifact.
Yes, they did it on the fish one.
Yeah,
they did put the Saqqara bird into a wind tunnel, though.
Yes, and that's probably where I screwed up, is that I thought they did an unreasonable, probably Mythbusters inspired like test on the artifact, on something like the artifact, and that was the one where they did the test and they're like, oh, this wouldn't be able to fly, and they're like, okay, but what if we added these stabilizing things to it?
Both instances, it's easy to get them confused because both instances are times where they take an artifact that would not fly and then they say, what if we put plane parts on it? Then I bet it would fly like a plane does.
So the next bit I got here, that's all on TFB. Next we got on How Move Big Rock.
Pyramids.
And one of the things that someone pointed out about the pyramids and the Sphinx is that actually they are also in danger right now because water.
But it's the desert.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Basically, new watering systems have caused the groundwater to rise, and they've had to install pumps to keep the water levels down so it doesn't do damage to the sandstone buildings. So good on that.
Great. So more stuff to worry about.
Yeah. A lot of people found new things for us to be sad about, that's for sure.
That's great. It's so far partly corrections, but it's also partly like, here's some worse news.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The other thing too is on Moving Big Rocks, actually, Kevin from Pixelit sent us a link showing that there's actually a wonderful little archaeological study through a TikToker by the name of Annalise the Archaeologist. Showed that there was this new sort of experimental archaeology program that showed that you can move big rock by putting it on a sled and then tying ropes to it and then pulling it.
Huh.
That's just a thing
wouldn't
that
think
you can
that
do.
would work, but all right, I believe him.
And it actually works pretty fast.
So they could build it without needing alien technology?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
Who would have thunk it? Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah. Next, we move into skull modification.
Yay!
So that was one of my favorite episodes because it talks
That
about
was a great one.
talks about an aspect of the human experience where, like, I have a feeling that because of like sort of Western attitudes towards body modification, we tend not to give a lot of attention to like the sort of really cool variety of ways that we do like piercings or tattoos or scarification or things like skull modification. And so I thought that was a really cool addition. But one of the things that I said in the episode, very normal thing, was I said something about corsets, specifically that corsets were these tight things that basically wrecked people's organs. And I mentioned corsets as a form of body modification to make the waist tighter. And everybody who, let's just say, some very nice people who knew a lot more than I did about Victorian clothing styles came into my menchies to let me know that that's basically a myth, and that
Gotcha.
really tight corsets were actually pretty rare, and that really all corsets really ended up being was basically pre-bras. It was just
like some
bras
support.
before.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't crush organs except for some very extreme outliers.
They always do that though in like movies. Like Pirates of the Caribbean had like an opening scene of Elizabeth Swann being like squeezed into a corset to the point of her passing out.
Yeah.
It's not our fault, it's movies.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for telling us.
But for the most part, yeah, they provided back and chest support. They didn't really restrict women's movement. And they pointed out that there were like women in Victorian times who were like climbing mountains in corsets or playing tennis in corsets.
That's cool.
But that there was a fad in the late 1800s for tight lacing, but that it was a sort of silly trend that the upper classes did. But most people did not do that.
Gotcha.
But
Little fun little fad. Yeah.
cool little story as to how this this sort of myth came about is that in the 1920s, male designers of basically brassieres, the first bras, wanted to wanted to sell their invention against the more female-owned seamstresses who made corsets, and paid doctors to say that corsets were unhealthy and that bras were way better for you. And now there's a video by Bernadette Banner that's apparently really good about it.
History. Isn't it fascinating?
The other one, too, is that the Huns, I said that the Huns founded Hungary, and that was not true. That the Hungarians were actually founded by a group called the Magyars,
Okay.
and that the Huns are actually hypothesized to be probably closer related to Turks than Hungarians.
Gotcha. See, I mean, I always come into this show always saying that I know nothing. And this is one of those almost nearly all of these corrections are like, I would have no earthly idea. There's not a chance I could pull Tristan aside and be like, I don't know, bud. You sure about this one?
Another thing I'm learning is that a lot of it is just the thing that I said as an aside, as a fun fact, is almost always the thing that's wrong.
That's the other thing too. I don't know if how much people realize this about this show. It's like we have an outline, but then a lot of the time we'll say something that will start a tangent that will, specifically get like your history brain going, and that's not on the outline. So there will be more like misspeaking than like than potential factual inaccuracies in a way. I mean, both can be true, but yeah.
Yeah. Moving to the next one, we're talking about the Dogon people episode. And yes. I made a statement that a brown dwarf, which was one of the stars in the Sirius system that was not visible until recent times.
Not the silly system.
I called that basically what is actually called a hot Jupiter. So hot Jupiters are like planets that are like in the size of Jupiter that are close enough to the sun that they orbit that they're really hot.
Okay.
But they don't do any fusion.
No
while
fusion.
While brown dwarfs are actual small stars that do nuclear fusion, and the smallest ones are probably about 13 times the size of Jupiter. So basically, to get this all rounded up,
lay it out for me.
I mistook a brown dwarf and a hot Jupiter. A hot Jupiter is a planet that is about the size of our gas giant planets that orbits the star that it's around at a very short distance, which means that it's very hot. But it doesn't do fusion, which is the process where through gravity it is fusing atoms into other atoms, basically, and producing like sort of that nuclear fuel that makes suns work. Doc Ock style.
Yeah.
And a dwarf star, or a brown dwarf, is a sort of small, weak star that is about 13 times larger than the size of Jupiter, but is still doing nuclear fusion. And so it's a star and not a planet.
Stars and planets. Will we ever know the difference between them? Scientists remain divided.
A brown dwarf is basically it is the lowest, weakest thing that you could define as a star at this point. I'm sure that's wrong.
Well, you don't have to put it down. You don't have to like make fun of it. It's already having a hard time. You don't have to like put it down, Tristan.
That's fair.
It's the smallest, weakest, barely a star, if you ask me. Brown dwarf stars.
Yeah, oh man. In the next one we talked about with Manna, good old heaven biscuits.
Love it.
And this happens apparently a lot, that people talk about the manna but forget about the quails, where apparently in the story
that's true.
People would God gave the sort of Israelites manna in the morning and then quails in the evening. So just birds started dropping from the sky.
I forgot about this until you literally said the word quails. Yes. Because I remember learning about this in Sunday school, and I always pictured just like fully cooked birds falling out of the sky, like just beautiful oven roasted quails, like steaming hot falling out of the sky.
Nice, like a hot chicken that you pick up from the grocery store or something.
And like a nice rotisserie quail.
Yeah, and you know who else missed that? The people from the Manna machine, because I don't think that the machine that was making their concept was that it was making like nuclear powered like algae biscuits.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that that's bread is one thing. Saying that that's bird is a completely different thing.
I guess their idea of it is we're trying to explain what manna is, because we don't have a current manna, but we know what quail is. We know what that is. So I don't have to use alien science to explain birds.
Unless there's like some sort of secret desert quail, I think.
A desert quail. A hot gourmet desert quail.
Yeah.
So delicious. I'm getting hungrier as we record this episode.
Yeah. Moving forward to our episode on giants, I did say a few oopses.
Okay.
The first one is that I did say that we were closer related to bonobos than chimpanzees. Somebody pointed out that we are basically equally related to chimps and bonobos.
Okay.
Basically, we have a common ancestor in common with their common ancestor.
Oh, okay. So we forked off at around the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
And that during the episode, I also conflated Homo erectus and Homo neanderthalis, or Neanderthals, several times. They're separate hominid species. It's thought that Homo sapiens and Neanderthals both descended from Homo erectus. So I got that mixed up.
And then I bet did Homo erectus come from bonobos? Because bonobos are horny all the time, and Homo erectus does sound like a penis joke.
I think that I think the breakoff was certainly before then, but
okay.
Let's just say,
but you were following me with definitely my wordplay there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And the other thing too is that somebody wanted some more information about Judaism being polytheistic. In its really, really, really early times. And I tried to find, there are some sources on it. I couldn't find anything that wasn't really, really dry and academic. But the best one that I could throw at you was that there's one case that is from your more contemporary Bible, which is, if you remember in the story of Moses, there's a scene where Moses goes to the Pharaoh and says, "Hey, people, let them go.
Let them go. I like those folks."
Yeah. There's one part where he goes, "My God is very powerful." And if you notice in the Old Testament, a lot of the times God doesn't say that he's the only God. He just says he's the most powerful one. And in one of the scenes in the story, Moses, talks about how he's the most powerful, and he turns his staff into a snake. But the Egyptian priests turn their staffs into snakes, and they fight. And Moses's snake wins. Which is implying not that, that the God of the Jews is the only God, but that it is the most powerful one. Because then, the Egyptians did need to have gods that existed in order to have their magic trick happen too.
Yeah. Because, I think I think Moses asks God at the burning bush or something, which God or what God, and he says, that's when he gets the name, I am. But I'll look it up. I'll look it up right now. I can't have a correction in a correction episode. We can't have someone hit us back with that.
So we're moving on to the next episode where we're going to talk about the Ark of the Covenant. So there's two things. One is an expansion on a story that we told, and the other one is I mixed up some terms. So the cherubim are not the monstrous angels with burning wheels within wheels rimmed with eyes. Those are actually called the Ophanim.
Oh,
and
okay.
Cherubim are actually kind of a mix of they have the head of a lion or an ox and then a human or a bird, basically.
Cool.
And then, so that's basically that thing. And that we also told the story about the Ark of the Covenant episode of Mythbusters.
Yes.
And how that was really, really seriously. And somebody pointed out that it was much worse than we thought. Adam Savage wasn't just pissed. He was very, very pissed, to the point where the producer of that episode got fired. And not just fired, blacklisted from Hollywood.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you know anything about doing anything in show business, anything that involves dealing with electrical equipment is you don't fuck with that shit. That was a serious safety hazard. I mean, last year we learned that on the production studio of a TV show or a movie or anything like that, that if you don't take the safety of everything very seriously, it can be deadly. We had that whole incident with Alec Baldwin dealing with the fact that they basically they didn't have a really good firearms expert on set, and it led to a filmmaker dying.
Yeah.
And I think that this is another case where being lapsed with safety, especially on a show that involves a lot of working in workshops. This is dangerous. So.
It's dangerous stuff. I remember if I remember correctly, he even asked, because he thought they were going to prank him like that. He was like, you didn't hook up, this is just the Baghdad batteries, right? You didn't hook up a car battery or anything to it. And they were like, no, of course, we would never do that. And they did. And it looked violent. It did not look fun.
Yes. And the thing is that even a little bit of electricity like that, if Adam Savage had an undiagnosed heart condition or anything like that, they could have killed him.
Absolutely. So
yeah,
no good.
Next on, we're going to get to Al the Space Potato, and we get to the first major controversy of this show, which is that during the podcast, I erroneously said that John Carpenter made The Thing, and many corrected me, pointing out that it was indeed David Cronenberg who made it. So thank you for pointing out that mistake, and I hope to fix that in the future.
Out of all of the corrections, there's history stuff, there's there's religious stuff, there's all of these things that people are rightfully sort of correcting us on. I personally do not know of any bigger blunder that we have had on this show that has caused a bigger outcry from people than saying Cronenberg's The Thing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just on you, it was on me for not correcting you, because I knew it, but you said it so confidently. I was like, I think Tristan knows it better than me, maybe.
It's also a meme now. So
it is a meme now.
Yeah. Another thing I did in that episode is I conflated two science terms. I conflated ions and isotopes. So an ion is an atom that has more or less electrons than usual and is charged. And an isotope is where it has a different number of neutrons, becoming more or less stable and useful for radiocarbon dating. So an ion is an atom that has more or less electrons than it's supposed to, which gives it a electric charge. And an isotope is a atom that has a nucleus where there are a different number of neutrons than it's supposed to, which changes its stability. That's the difference. I apologize for that, because that is a key distinction.
Yes. They are different words.
I hope you can forgive me for making such an error as someone who's not a physicist, but also it is important for understanding certain things. Moving on to the Band of Holes episode, this is more of an addition. I talked about guano and about how bird guano was this huge deal for many, many years because as we started doing industrial farming, we needed fertilizer, but fertilizer, we had not made the Haber-Bosch process, which turns basically air into nitrogen that we can put into fuel or put into fertilizer. And so we had to get it from a rich nitrogen source, which was basically bird poop that had like hardened on these like islands in the ocean, and like wars were fought over this.
Yeah.
And someone wanted to point out why there actually is so much nitrogen in bird poop, and it's because birds don't have. Let me get a little blue here, but
do it.
The waste products that come out of a bird don't distinguish between liquid and solid.
It's all one hole down there, baby.
Yeah, it literally is. It's called a cloaca or cloaca.
Cloaca, yeah.
And basically, what they excrete is just everything, and including their wee that has uric acid, basically the stuff that makes pee smell like ammonia. And ammonia is nitrogen. It's very rich in nitrogen. And it doesn't, because it is, apparently because it's uremic acid, it doesn't dissolve in water as readily as urea, which is in mammal pee. So it amalgamates into these deposits of like rich nitrogen sources.
Gotcha.
I didn't know if you were hoping to get some facts about bird pee today, but there you go.
Tristan, I'm always in the mood for some bird pee facts.
Nice.
In fact, I am not very much on Twitter these days, so go ahead and fill my mentions with just more fun facts about bird pee, please.
Maybe it'll bring you back.
Maybe it'll bring me back.
Yeah. Moving forward to in the cattle mutilation episode, we made a one-off joke about vampire ants, and then somebody pointed out that vampire ants are real.
Oh.
It's a North American thing called the Western vampire ant, and they're known for basically feeding on centipedes.
Oh, dang.
And the main thing they do is that they drink the hemolymph of the larva of centipedes, which is basically the blood of centipedes.
Oh, yeah. Vampire ants or Dracula ants is what I'm seeing on google.com. There's a fantastic photo of just someone's hand covered all in these ants, and I don't like it. Mm-hmm. I just don't like it. I'm not a fan.
Oh,
I'll say it.
Kind of moving to the next episode, we got the Great Flood, Noah's Flood episode.
All right.
And someone pointed out that I think I mentioned that in the Epic of Gilgamesh, that Gilgamesh and Enkidu search for immortality. But I like the one that someone wrote this. I really hate to be that guy, but you said both Gilgamesh and Enkidu search for immortality. But spoiler alert, how can I say this nicely? Enkidu doesn't.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I forgot that Enkidu does die as part of the process. I know because Gilgamesh and Enkidu's story is used in an episode of Star Trek that's really good, the famous Darmok and Jalad at Tanagra episode.
Yeah, that famous one. Which Star Trek show is that one?
That was The Next Generation.
So I have no excuse for not knowing what you're talking about.
You know this one? The episode's called Darmok, and it's probably one of the top, I'd probably put it in my top 10 Star Trek episodes. It's where they run across this alien race, and they're like, oh yeah, this race is really, even though we have the universal translators, we can't, like, every time we speak to them, we can't understand what they're saying. And they talk to them, and they're talking complete nonsense, but then Picard gets stuck on the planet with one of these aliens for a while, and he learns that basically that these aliens communicate via, like, references to stories.
Okay.
And so he teaches, like, they learn to communicate by him teaching the story of Gilgamesh.
No, yes. This episode, and I'm sure it's not the only one, but does have its own Wikipedia page, and it's really long.
I'm pretty sure every episode of Star Trek has a Wikipedia page, but it's probably a pretty big one.
This does sound familiar, the episode you're talking about. I do recall a Sir Patrick Stewart saying the words Epic of Gilgamesh. So that's got to mean something for me.
Yeah, perfect. Next thing on the Great Flood episode is I did do a little bit of a rudeness, specifically for Judaism. Judaism, in that here basically, I did not know this until somebody pointed this out, that in Judaism, God has a name and you're not supposed to say it. And I should have known this because most observant Jews will not even write the word God. They'll sort of dash out one of the letters, but you especially shouldn't say his proper name. And I did.
Oh,
and
the one that I
rude.
almost said earlier?
Yeah.
Whoops.
So sorry about that. Did not know that little aspect. That is all.
I also had no idea. So thank you for letting us know.
Yeah. And that is the Great Flood. Now, Scott, before we move on, we're at about the 38-minute mark.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the good word of Nebula.tv? I should probably find the actual link so that we can say the link.
Yeah. Hey, folks. I don't know of a way to naturally lean into this. We are, we're doing a lot of, it's a new year for the podcast. It's a new year for us. It's a new year for most people. I mean, some people's New Year's reset at different dates, but you understand what I'm trying to say here. Mm-hmm. This podcast is on a streaming platform called Nebula that you can go check out. And we're going to be working really hard to be one episode ahead over on Nebula. So if you want to listen to the next episode right now, you can go do that.
Yeah, if you're getting this in public, if you're getting this and you're not on Nebula, you can already listen to next week's episode right now if you sign up at nebula.tv/probably not aliens. That's nebula.tv/probably not aliens. If you sign up through that, you help us. You help all of the creators on Nebula because we're all sort of involved. We all own the platform. And it's probably the best way to support this show other than word of mouth.
Yeah. We've had like one ad on this show before, but really we just like to make this show. And this is like a really simple way for you to support us. If you're already a Nebula subscriber, you get the next episode a week early. Or if you want to sign up to Nebula, Nebula is also just a platform for all sorts of really cool educational YouTuber, educational content creator, podcast videos, including all that stuff. Including us. We have video stuff up there.
Yep. So yeah, we'll get back to the content, but that's nebula.tv/probably not aliens. And let's do some more.
Let's do some more corrections.
We're going to talk about the Maya collapse episode.
Yeah. What happened in this one?
Interesting. So this one, there's two things, an addition to something that I said and a correction to you, Scott.
No.
Yeah.
I was doing so good.
Yeah. So I talked about how sharp Obsidian is in this episode because it's super duper sharp. And somebody had pointed out that not only can Obsidian be sharper than a steel scalpel, but that there are actual surgeons who still use Obsidian scalpels. That it can be so sharp that the blade is 30 angstroms wide at its point, which is a unit of measurement equal to 100 millionth of a centimeter. Which means that...
what's that in inches, please?
Very, very, very small. To give you an idea, a household razor that you would use for shaving or cutting your hair or anything like that is about 300 to 600 angstroms.
There is a really cool image on a image search engine. Doesn't matter. You can probably find it on any of them. Comparing under a microscope a obsidian scalpel versus like a modern steel scalpel. Mm-hmm. And the difference will shock you.
Yeah.
It's really cool how clean and sharp this thing is.
Yeah, the only thing that can really rival Obsidian for sharpness is diamond. And the reason why some surgeons use it is when you want to do an incision and you don't want to leave a scar, having a very, very sharp blade is important. And so
I should stop using my bread knife. Yeah.
Yeah. It's usually used for surgery on people's eyes.
Oh my God. Yeah, I guess people do need that. I don't like picturing it, but yeah, that makes sense.
And apparently every flint napper, which is people who make things out of obsidian, but other stones as well, by like just kind of hitting the rock and breaking it the right way. It's a really cool practice. But basically every flint napper apparently has a story of cutting themselves with obsidian so badly, and because it's so sharp, they don't even feel it and they don't notice until the blood just starts pouring out. And apparently, though, those cuts, because it's so sharp, they actually do end up not feeling so much, and then they heal almost scar-free.
Whoa. This is cool. I mean, it sounds dangerous to handle, and I wouldn't want anyone to trust me with one, but I'm liking this. This is cool. I just keep finding microscope pictures comparing it to steel.
Oh, man.
It's shocking.
And in this same episode, Scott, you mentioned Thebes being called the Big Olive.
Oh, I do remember. It's a different Thebes.
It's a different Thebes. There's two of them.
Yeah.
There was one in Greece, which is the Big Olive, and then there was also one in Egypt that was not related to olives of any size.
No olives in that one. I was gonna say we were talking about it didn't feel geographically correct, but I wasn't gonna. I was like, what are the odds of two places being named Thebes? I say, talking to my podcast co-host who's living in London, but not that one.
You live in Roanoke, but not that one.
But not that one.
So that was that. Next, we got to the Eric Von Daniken two-parter. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that we want to go with is I was very bad at pronouncing German. So we had Philip Maleric came and pronounced a word for us. I don't know anything about German. The other thing, too, I wanted to mention, I did in that, is that I did mistakenly say that Kurt Russell started in Stargate when it was clearly Kevin Bacon.
It was Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
This was the start of a theme of us realizing we are not good at movie trivia.
Yeah, this is true. And also, when I was talking about the effect of X-Files on the world, somebody wanted to mention the Scully effect, which apparently the X-Files resulted in an uptick of women going into STEM, going into science and engineering and math and stuff, which I think is really cool. Because, on the X-Files, Scully's this very competent medical doctor / FBI investigator, and she's pretty badass in the show. And apparently that inspired a lot of women to go into more scientific disciplines, which is pretty nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the creator of X-Files went on to make Breaking Bad, so win-wins all around.
And then Breaking Bad had Bob Odenkirk, and then we all love him.
Mm-hmm. Next, we get into the episode on crop circles.
All right.
And the most important fact of that episode was indeed that in Australia they called dust devils willy willies.
That's the most important thing, and we didn't get that wrong.
That is true. That is true.
That's a true one.
But
all right, Hugh Jackman says willy willy all the time.
Yeah, but important to note is that in other parts of Australia, dust devils go by the name of whirligigs.
Whirligigs. I love Australia.
Hello, yeah, Australia.
It's a treasure.
Great names every time. No notes ever. And then we got to the Grab Bag 2, where I was talking about the Serapeum of Saqqara.
Yes.
And oh boy, this is one that I'm kind of embarrassed about, but I hope that people will forgive me for this great, huge mistake. So
what happened?
I mentioned that.
Are we canceled?
Yep. So in the story, we mentioned that the Serapeum of Saqqara one time had the King of England, Edward VII, have lunch there. In the historical artifact place. And I mentioned that Edward VII was the weird king that had to abdicate because he got divorced and married Wallace Simpson and was kind of a Nazi sympathizer. Someone pointed out that was indeed not Edward VII. Edward VII died in 1910. It was indeed his grandson, Edward VIII.
They gotta stop naming him Edward. That's the problem. Yeah. It got confusing for everybody. There are other names. Do they know that there are other names out there? They're like, it's Edward, and that's the name. And then we don't have another name.
I don't know. We're on Charles III, so they only have a handful of names. What's after this one? It'd be Will. Is Will the next one?
Is he the first? Will the first?
I think so. There's Harry and Will. Right. I can't remember which one comes first. And then after that is George.
And then it's going to be, when it's Will, we're going to spell Will with the I is going to be the number 1 so that we know that it's 1. And then when the second one comes out, the 2 L's are going to be 2.
The problem is that there's already been a King William. I wonder if they're going to count it, but I think there's been several. But the first William is like what would technically, I think, be the first King of England, which was William the Conqueror.
I just keep thinking of how perfect the name Will is to convert any number into like if you're like the 4th or 5th one, you can still make that W and the I and whatever. You can make it into Roman numerals. It can fit any number of these Wills.
I guess the last King William was King William IV, who reigned until 1837.
Okay.
Who was the 3rd son of George III, most famous for being the king that you guys didn't like too much. And you did a whole American Revolution about.
We did.
Yeah. But that's Grab Bag 2, and I'm realizing that we are just about at time for one episode. So I guess we're just going to have to come back in a few months. And,
how many more corrections do we have? How far did we get through this list?
We got, I would say, about third through.
We got a third of the way. Is this a bad podcast?
I think it's just a podcast that says a lot of facts and has had 65 episodes now. And
it's a podcast that I'll stress again is purely for entertainment and for fun.
But to kind of send off, I want to mention that like everybody messes up. I've got mistakes in videos that I've made, and I've got mistakes in
everybody makes mistakes.
Research I've done for university.
Everybody has those days,
and just know that the main thing is that it isn't a problem to make mistakes, but it is to do things like this, to be honest about it, and to correct yourself when you need to be corrected. And also that the main thing I'm learning through all of this is to research things, especially if you think you know it, because it seems like most of the mistakes I made were things that I thought I already knew and didn't need to look up.
I think the main thing that I learned is that I might have been a little bit ahead of the curve when I told people to rate us 4 stars back in the day.
Don't feel too bad.
No, this is a fun show, and we're doing new year, fresh, wiping the slate clean, and we appreciate everyone who listened. And we're gonna have so much more show, and we're gonna get so much more wrong that you get to look forward to every week.
I've got movie facts wrong that you don't even know of yet.
Oh, I've got them in the back pocket, ready for a bad movie fact. Here we go.
Yep.
I remember that movie Space Jam starring Sylvester Stallone. What a classic.
I would watch that.
That would be a good one. Actually, that would be fun. But yeah, we appreciate everyone who reached out, and one of the best parts, other than talking with you all the weeks, Tristan, is just the community around this show and the people who are telling us all this good stuff that we got wrong or that we missed, even if it was bad news about fires from volcanoes destroying things that we can't do anything about. Why are you talking to us about it?
One thing I want to add too. My wife Kelly got me for Christmas a really cool gift, which is she got me a 1970s Turkish bill, like a piece of their like old money from when they had the money with the Piri Reis map on it.
That's right. I saw a picture of it. I saw a picture of it on Mastodon, the way of the future.
Yeah, but that's so we'll come back. But the main thing though is that you could listen to this show or talk to us and tell us about all of your bird pee facts by going to @ProbsNotAliens on Twitter.
People have been asking if Probs Not Aliens will have a Mastodon account. I don't know. We've not discussed it even a little bit. I've just been not even being on social media for the most part, but
it's been really good. His hair's grown back. He's 10 years younger. He's 20 again somehow.
I'm 20 again. Can you believe that?
If you're 20 years old, I find out that that means you were born in 2002 and you're the same age.
That's right.
As what's her name? The redheaded girl from Stranger Things.
Yeah. Didn't we discover that 2002 was the greatest year for cinema?
Yeah, you were born the same year Spider-Man came out,
and Big Fat Liar was there. It was a good time.
Okay, we cannot go back there. You went down a hole that it took us a while to get you back out.
It did. Tristan, save us. Where can people find you on the internet outside of this show?
I have a YouTube channel called Step Back, which you can find at stepbackhistory.com. If you go there, you'll find my video that I made back in December, unless actually this episode might come up the day after, depending upon how things go. I have an episode that will be coming out around the same time this episode comes out, and it is on the history of trans people and how there were trans people while there were still mammoths. So there's a long history, very, very cool stuff. But Scott, where can we find your cool work?
Well, you can find it on YouTube at the YouTube channel Nerdsync, Nerdsync. But we mentioned Nebula earlier. Tristan and I are both on Nebula. We make video content as well as this podcast over there. If all shakes out, I will be releasing a ton of Nebula videos, and some of them are Nebula exclusive. exclusive videos in this month.
Yep.
So go check it out. I worked hard on it.
If you want to work on if you want to help out the show, nebula.tv/probably not aliens. And if you sign up for that, you help out both of us, and you can find all of our stuff there.
That's right.
You can also leave reviews if you want to help out the show. Reviews on whatever podcast app you're using to listen to this show. Your 5-star reviews are very much welcome, and they do a lot to help us rise. And that was another correction. Somebody pointed out that actually there is YouTube recommendation algorithms now. So
that's true. And I mean, there are some people who write who writes great reviews. You know, we appreciate everyone who takes the time to write any review, but like, you don't even have to write. Here's one right now I'm staring at in front of my face. The review title is "I like it," and then it gave us 5 stars. And the review description, the actual review is "I like this," and that's it. And that's all we really need. And that really makes me feel good. And that review comes from the person with the username Best Dating App Honestly. So I don't know if they were thinking that this podcast was a dating app and they liked it.
It's probably not aliens, the dating app where 50% of your matches are aliens, and part of the fun is figuring out which ones are and aren't.
It's a game.
Also, if you want to help out this podcast, telling your friends, showing this to people is really a great way to do it. This podcast is great for all sorts of people. Dads are a big fan of this podcast.
Dads love it. Yeah.
Dad approved. You can send them to our website, probsnotaliens.com, where you can find out every single way that you can sign up and listen to the show.
All the links that we've mentioned will be in the description of all these episodes. And just, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, when we do a proper episode with no wrong information. My name is Scott Nicewarner.
I'm Tristan Johnson, and the truth is out there. Usually.
Sometimes.
Most of the time.
When other people tell us what it is.
Yeah.